Hi everyone. In this tutorial we'll be modeling this Sphericon pendant in Blender 2.76. This is a companion video to my latest 3ds Max tutorial of the same object, and we're going to translate the workflow that I used in that video over to Blender. The model we create here can be used for 3D printing or by itself as a design element like a jewelry prop or a sculpture in a 3D render. I created this render with the Corona engine in Max, but this would also make an excellent candidate for all sorts of material testing in cycles. Okay, so let's go and open up Blender. I have an empty scene here. Again, I'm using 2.76 as the version type. I have my loop tools enabled as the only add-on that'll be necessary for this tutorial. In the Max version, I did model to specific real-world scale. However, I don't often model to scale in Blender, so I will be using arbitrary units here. So you should be able to follow along using the exact settings that I employ here, if you have the default unit scale. Okay, so the first step, you will notice also that I do use as always, the dynamic spacebar add-on and the pie menu add-on. However, they are not necessary for completing this tutorial. I'll do my best to verbalize all of the keys that I'm using. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is add a cylinder to the scene. Now by default, if you look here on the left hand side in the operator panel, by default it has 32 vertices. We're going to change that to 12, and we're going to change the cap fill type to nothing. So basically we have an empty tube here. Okay, so now let's hit the tab key and we'll go into edit mode, and I'll deselect everything. And first thing we'll do is hold down Control and tap R to bring up our loop cut and slide. And I'm just going to add a loop cut right through the center there. Okay, and we're not going to slide it. It needs to be right in the middle. Okay, so once that's done, we'll deselect. And we'll go ahead and tap B to bring up our box select option and go ahead and box select all of the vertices along the border edge at the top. And we'll tap it again and box select all of the vertices at the bottom. Now make sure that you didn't get any of the center vertices there. Okay, so the next step, we're going to change our pivot point origin to individual origins, and we'll tap S on the keyboard for scale, and then we'll hold Control while we scale this down. Probably scale it down as much as you can without intersecting, but 0.10 is probably pretty close enough anyway. Alright, so I just held Control while I scaled those down. Keep the vertices that are selected, keep them selected, and just go down here to the Edge Select button and click on, wait a minute, let's see. I think we might have to, let's go down here to the Edge Select button, and you have to hold Control while you click on that. And what that does is it'll take the Vertex selection that you had and convert it to all these edges. Okay, so if we didn't hold Control, it would have just selected the edges at the top that were associated with those vertices, but we want all these edge rings selected as well. Okay, so hold down Control and just click the button and you'll get this selection. And then the next step is going to be to switch over to your left hand panel here until you find Subdivide. Alright, under the Tools option, click on Subdivide, and we're going to give it 4 cuts. Yeah, I think it's 4 cuts, but let's see, we seems to be having a problem here. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but what we're going to have to do is start that whole section one more time because I didn't collapse these vertices. Okay, so I'm going to select these again. All right, now this is the step that I missed here, which is why I'm wondering why did that look so funny. All right, but anyway, you want these selected, so these will still be selected after you've done your scaling. Okay, we're in vertex level here. So now what we want to do before we do the subdivide is hold down Alt and tap the M button to bring up the merge panel. Okay, and we're going to choose collapse. All right, now we have what looks like a children's toy here, like a little top. All right, and these vertices are now welded together. All the vertices that were there are just one point now. All right, so now from here we can hold Control and switch to our edges, and all of these edges will be selected, and then we can choose Subdivide and add 4 cuts. All right, so this is the object that we want. All right, sorry for that little mix-up earlier. So now we'll tap 5 on the number pad to go to orthographic, and we'll tap 1 to go to front view. Okay, so now we're looking at the object in front orthographic. All right, so you could tap A to deselect everything, and then tap Z and choose wireframe. All right, to go to wireframe view. And from here we're going to select, we're going to go into polygon mode and select half of the object. So tap B to box select, and just box select half of that top there. Okay, and after you have that half selected, you can tap the P button to detach, to separate, and then you want to separate by selection. So it's the first one on there. All right, and you'll see that it disappears from the edit mode. And what you want to do next is go ahead into object mode, and we're going to reattach these 2 parts. So just go ahead and select the both parts by holding Shift, and then Control and J will bring them back to one object again. They're not welded, but they are in fact part of the same object. So we can go back in edit mode, and we could go ahead and select this half. Or an easier way to do it is just to go ahead and put your mouse, hover your mouse over half of the object and just tap the L key, and you'll see that it'll select that entire half that we've just detached from the other side. Okay, so just mouse over it and tap L, and that selects all the linked parts. All right, so now that that's selected, we'll tap R to rotate, and we'll tap our X key for the X-axis, and we're going to rotate this object 90 degrees, and what I'll do is just type it into the angle parameter here, 90. Okay, on the left-hand side with the X-axis constrained, and this is what we have. Okay, so now we could select all and tap the W key, and we'll go ahead and remove doubles. And since these are very close together to begin with, the merge distance should, the default merge distance should in fact have welded all of them. You could tap it up a little bit to make sure, and in this case merge distance of 0.010, okay, has removed 20 vertices and left us with 228 edges and 110 verts. All right, so that means that it's been welded down the middle here. So we can verify that by deselecting all and just putting our mouse over one side of the object and tapping L, and it'll select the entire object this time, which means both are in fact welded together. Okay, that's just for verifying that we've correctly welded it as one object. Okay, so that's what we have so far. We could at this point go back out. Let's tap our Z key and go back to our solid view and deselect, go to edge mode, and actually we can get this edge right here, and if you hold down Shift and Alt when you tap on an edge, all right, you should see that it selects the entire edge loop. All right, so holding down Shift and Alt, I'm tapping on these edges, and it's selecting the entire edge loop, which is in fact what we want. All right, and now we're going to perform a bevel on this, these two selected edges here, or edge loops, I should say. All right, so hold down Control and tap the B key, and we're just going to bevel it out a little bit here. I'm going to go over to the amount panel, and I'm going to just manually type in 0.1 as the bevel amount. All right, and we'll increase segments to 4. Okay, that actually, what that does is give us 3 internal segments. When segments is put at 4, we'll end up with 3 internal segments. Now you notice that it has rounded this out, which in most cases would be fine. But we're going to just flatten that by adjusting the profile slider. All right, and we'll just adjust it a little bit here. Mine is 0.270, and that looks like it has flattened those out. Okay, so that's what we want. All right, and the next step would be to go to face mode and select one of these n-gon faces here. Okay, and you'll notice that they're on every corner. Okay, so just select one, and then hold down Shift, tap the G key to bring up your select similar options, and just choose polygon sides, and that will select all of those n-gon faces. All right, so we will tap the X key to delete, and we'll choose faces and remove all of those, and we now have holes there in every corner, which is what we want at this point so far. Okay, so we're going to quad these holes up. We're going to add quad polygons in there. All right, so let's go up to one of these holes and close in on it a little bit, and holding down Shift and Alt, I'll just tap one of these. I gotta go in edge mode and tap Shift and Alt, and I got that entire edge loop there. All right, around the opening. And with that selected, let's see, I'm going to hold Control and tap the F key to bring up my Faces menu. All right, and I want what is called the Grid Fill tool. All right, and that's a nice little tool that'll help you quad up holes real quickly with a cap. All right, and the cap has segments that you could change if you need to. Okay, so my preferred settings here to cap this are span will equal 4, so you want 4 there, and that gives us the 3 internal edges to match up with these edge loops. Okay, and I didn't need an offset for this, but offset will rotate those edges if necessary to match up with your topology. Okay, so if I rotate it enough, it goes right back to where it was in the beginning. Okay, but 0 offset has lined it up perfectly for that. So now we'll just move on, and we'll go down to the next hole, deselect that, the first one, and in edge mode again, we're going to hold down Shift and Alt and just tap an edge, and we've selected that whole loop. All right, so now Control F, grid fill again, and the default setting of 4 spans and 0 offset has given me a nice result there, as you can see. All right, and we'll just do it for this this hole as well. All right, so grid fill is a very nice feature in Blender, and it's an elegant feature. All right, and it's very useful for situations like this where you want to quad up holes real quickly. Okay, so we've just quickly grid filled all of those, and seems to have worked. It looks like we have all of our corners quadded now. All right, so I'm happy with that. I think the next step is to go ahead and select, go to face mode, and we'll go ahead and we'll select all. There'll be three. You'll see when I select it here, but again, I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, and I'm going to tap on an edge in face mode, and that will select the entire face loop. Okay, so holding down Shift and Alt, I've selected this first face loop here. Okay, and then I'm going to select the other two. So we want these three face loops selected. Okay, and then from there we could switch to vertex mode, and it will retain the face selection. Okay, and that's a good thing because we want to create a vertex group now. So with all of these vertices selected, we'll go over here to our data panel, all right, which is right next to your modifier panel, and we're going to go down to our vertex groups parameter, and click on the X right next to vertex groups, and that will initiate a new group. And then we have all of these vertices assigned or selected, and we'll just click on assign with that group selected, and that will assign all of these vertices to a group. All right, so we've assigned them to this group, and we could, if we had more than one vertex group, we could go ahead and rename it to keep track of what it is. But in this case, there's only going to be one, so we won't need to do that. All right, so now, now that we have that, we can go ahead and tap out to object mode, and then go to our modifier panel. And we're going to add one of these, this new modifier called Corrective Smooth, all right, to the whole object. And this was added in the last version of Blender, and it's a really nice smoothing algorithm. It's the same smoothing algorithm, or seemingly so, that I have in 3ds Max in what is called the Relax modifier. Okay, so what it does here is, or what we can do with it in this case, is go ahead and tick the option that says only smooth. All right, so you'll tick that and you'll see that it smooths the entire object. However, what we want to do is limit this effect to only our vertex group that we've created. So go ahead to where it says vertex group, and then when you open that, a rollout will appear, and you'll see the word group in there, and that's our vertex group that we just created. We didn't give it any unique name, so we're going to select group as our vertex group, and you could see now that it has limited the effect of the modifier to only those selected vertices on the object. And that's exactly what we want to do, but we want to increase the repeat value of this modifier all the way as high as it can go. And you could see the effect that that has here on the object. All right, so we went from this to this with just sliding this all the way to the very end. 200 is actually as far as I got it here. And this is the exact object we're looking for. All right, so it's done its job. So we can go ahead and apply that. All right, so that modifier is now applied. And we're going to go now to edit mode. And our faces here, our vertices are still selected, which is what we want. Because right now what we'll do is we'll tap the P key to separate, and we'll separate again by selection. And that separates this middle web from the curved edge parts. Okay, so this is what we have now. This has been separated to an entirely new object, or different object, which will allow us to work on this part without affecting that. All right, but for now we're going to tab out to object mode again. And what I want to really do here is just hide the web object, the middle object that we've just created. I'll call it a web for now. And we just want to hide this temporarily. So select that middle object and tap the H key, and that will just hide it from view for now so that we can model on these without it being in the way. All right, so I'm tapping the 5 key just to go back into perspective temporarily here, and work on these objects. All right, so let's go into edit mode. All right, and the first thing we'll do here is we're going to select the border edges on both of these objects. You can see they're just flat or one-sided surfaces, and we're going to make them manifold objects. So the first thing we'll do is go to edge mode, and holding Shift and Alt, we'll just click one of the edges, and that'll grab the entire open edge loop there. And then we'll do the same on this side. Okay, so we've selected the border edges. All right, so now we're going to change our 3D pivot again, or our pivot, I should say, our pivot point placement to 3D cursor. Okay, so down here, just open the rollout and select 3D cursor. And as long as you haven't moved your 3D cursor on accident throughout this process, it should be right in the exact center here. All right, so make sure that your 3D cursor is in fact right in the center. All right, so switch to 3D cursor, and then we're going to activate our scale manipulator down here at the bottom. All right, because we'll be using scaling now for more than anything else. So we might as well just activate that manipulator. All right, so with the scale manipulator activated and the 3D cursor as our pivot point, we're going to go ahead and tap E on the keyboard, okay, to activate extrude. But what we're going to do is just right click, and what that did is it activated the extrude, but it didn't actually extrude anything. Now let me do that again. I'm tapping E, and normally you can move around and pull out edges here or faces, but that's not what we want to do. We're going to right click, and so the extrude tool is activated, but it hasn't extruded yet from the origin. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold Control, and we'll tap S to activate our scale tool. Then we'll hold Control, and we're just going to scale those faces very slightly. Let's see, actually if I hold Shift and Control, I might get a better control of it. Yeah, holding Shift and Control at the same time after pressing S, I'm just going to scale them out probably to about 0.95. Okay, so you can see here the vector is 0.95 on the X, Y, and Z. Okay, so I held down Shift and Control, and that gave me more precision when using the scale tool. All right, to scale out the extrusion. All right, so we've extruded that out, and very slightly, as you can see, it should look like this. Okay, and from there, what we're going to do is go ahead into face mode, and we're going to tap A to select all. All right, and then we're going to Control F to bring up our faces panel, and just scroll down to solidify. And we're going to use the solidify tool here instead of the modifier. All right, and we're going to create some thickness. I'm going to thicken this to about 0.06. All right. Yeah, 0.05 or 6 should work here. That looks like it's the thickness I want. All right, now with all these faces on the interior still selected, we will go ahead and tap X and remove faces. Okay, so we're going to hollow it out again. We just wanted to get that little lip in there. All right, we could have done that with another extrusion, but the thickness gave us exactly what we want without having to play around with scale. All right, so there's the faces we want. All right, so now I'm going to border select again. Let's see, we'll border select these edges. All right, so holding Shift and Alt, we'll go into edge mode and go and hold Shift and Alt and select that. All right, and yeah, I think what we should do is make these flat first, all right, because they are a little beveled here from the applying the solidify. So what we're going to do is We're going to select those two border edges, and we're going to scale them out just a little bit, I think. We'll hold control while we just end up having to scale these, and I just lost total control of this operation, as you can see. Alright, so there, that's a little bit more control. So I'm just scaling them in a little bit to flatten out that surface. And boy, it's hard to sometimes control this this tool. Anyway, so I just pulled them out a little bit. It's probably not even necessary, but I wanted to flatten that out, where instead of being beveled in, it's kind of pushed out a little bit. Maybe I could have done it with the, I probably could have used the push-pull tool. Yeah, let me see. The push-pull tool is a lot better to control than the scale gizmo in certain circumstances. So up here in the tool panel, use the push-pull tool. I'd recommend that instead of scaling, and push them until you see that this ring of edges, our faces, I should say, are flat. Not flat, but they're not pushed inward from the previous edge, so that these faces here are straight. Okay. All right. So that's what I went through there, and so now what I'm going to do here is we're going to make this. We're going to fill this in. All right. So let's go to Edge mode, and holding down Shift and Alt, we'll select this entire. Let's make sure we deselected everything at first, then hold Shift and Alt and click that entire edge loop. Okay, now don't click the other one, because we have to use this tool one at a time. Alright, so I have that entire open edge loop selected, and what I'm going to do here is call up another tool from the face menu. This one is called Grid Fill. Okay, so choose Grid Fill, and I think we'll definitely have to play with some parameters here. So the span should be 2. Okay, and then we could play with the offset, and the offset is going to rotate these edges, and you'll want to rotate them until you find an offset that will be in accordance with your topology. Okay, so in this case, the span of 2 and offset of 11 gave me the result I'm looking for. All right, so this is what I'm looking to achieve. All right, so now let's do the same thing on the other side. So deselect, make sure you're in edge mode, holding Shift and Alt, click an edge, and you'll get that entire border. Now hold Control, go to F to bring up your Faces panel, and choose Grid Fill. And do the same thing, change the parameters there to 2 spans, and the offset to 11. And that gives us the topology we're looking for to close that hole. All right, with quads. So now that that's done, we can deselect that. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and extrude a little bit. These go to face mode, and we're going to make an extrusion along these border faces on either side. All right, so go ahead and hold down, and it's the same thing in face mode. If you hold down Shift and Alt, you'll get that whole face loop there. All right, and you could do the same on the other side in this case. All right, now we're going to go ahead and pull some faces out of there. So let's go ahead and tap E, and holding down Control. Let me see here. Actually, E and then the X hotkey. No, that's not what we want. So I'm going to right-click and just scale it. So I tapped E and then I right-clicked, and I'm going to employ scaling to pull those faces out that I just extruded. And I think it's going to give us more control. Alright, so I'm tapping the S key and I'm holding Control and Shift, and I'm just pulling these faces out. Yeah, that gives a lot better control. And we're just going to pull them out to about 0.96. Alright, so about that much, about the same as the previous extrusion there, as you can see. Okay, so 9.5, 9.6. Alright, so you can see the vector over here on all axes are on 0.96. So that gives us this. Alright, so now we could go ahead and deselect everything and go ahead out to object mode again. Now we'll unhide our other object and we'll begin working on it because we're done with those for now. Alright, so we'll alt-click H. So hold down Alt while you tap H on the keyboard, and that will unhide all your objects. In this case, we only had that one hidden. Alright, now we'll go ahead and select that object. We'll go into Edit Mode and select all. And we'll go ahead and scale this down. I'm going to tap my S key and hold Control, and I'm going to scale it down to about 0.8. Alright. Alright, so now the vector on that is 0.8, and you can see how small that went down. And that's about the size we'll need. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go to edge mode from here and deselect everything. We're going to have to make, in order to create these Voronoi style holes that are in the middle here, as you can see in this render. Blender doesn't have the same procedural topology tool that 3ds Max had, which is how I made it here. So we're going to have to do it manually, and Blender's tools are perfectly suited for doing it manually, so it shouldn't be much of a hassle here. Alright, well, the first thing we're going to do is in edge mode, we're going to hold down Control and Alt, and we're going to select the middle edge here. And that's holding Control and Alt will select the entire ring of edges in the middle of the object there. Okay. Now you might want to, let's see, we might want to jump to front view and just, you can see where our middle line is here. Actually, that's the right perspective. I'm sorry. Front would be the one on the key on the number pad. We're gonna click 3 on the number pad, and that takes us to our right perspective view. If you're in perspective, if you're not, tap 5 on that number pad, and it'll bring you to a perspective view. All right, so this is the right side view, and now that we have all of these selected, we're going to look at it from head on, and we're going to go down to our select panel and choose the checker deselect. Alright, and on this one we're going to want to make sure that the center edge is selected. Alright, so when we go ahead and initiate our checker deselect, we're going to stick with the defaults here because this is exactly the selection pattern that I want. Every other edge starting with this center edge. Alright, so we have the center edge in this ring selected, and then skip one, and then we have the other one selected, skip one, okay? Alright, so the default actually did that correctly, so we're going to keep it like this, and we're going to go ahead and tap the X key, and we're going to dissolve edges. Now, actually before we do that, Control Z. I actually am skipping over an entire part here. Before we go ahead and dissolve those edges, we're going to have to scale them to get the shape that we need. Alright, so I think what we'll need to do here is go ahead and change our pivot point to individual origins, and we're going to have to change our transform orientation to normal. All right, and then we'll tap the S key, and we'll just hold the control, and we'll scale them to about, I would say about 1.5. Okay, so 1.5. And we just scaled them up, and that's how they look right now. Okay, so you have that diamond pattern now. Now we could go ahead and tap the X key, and then dissolve edges. And over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that it also has dissolve verts selected by default. And we're going to deselect that, all right, for the next operations. We want to retain the vertices after we remove the edges, okay? So let's go ahead and select Control-Alt and select an edge on this edge ring. All right, and then we'll go ahead to select, checker deselect, and that gives us this selection, but we need to change the offset. So move the offset parameter just one place, and that will switch our selection type. All right, so this is what we want here. All right, and go ahead and X and dissolve the edges. All right, and make sure your dissolve verts is deselected. So then you should have something that looks like this. All right, now go ahead to this one, and we'll Control-Alt and select that entire edge ring, and then go down to your checker select, and we'll go ahead and we'll move the offset again. All right, it's back to 0, and then we'll hit X to dissolve, and this is our hexagonal pattern that will become later on when we subdivide a Voronoi style pattern. Okay, so we had to manually go about making the hexagons, and that's how I decided to do it to maintain this shape. All right, so now that we have that, the hard part's over there. All right, what we can do here is go up and select. Well, we can select this border edge, I guess, after we inset. So, all right, we're going to select all the faces. All right, just by going to make sure you're in face mode. Tap A for all, tap I for inset, and then go ahead and initiate the operator panel over here. And we'll inset, make sure your individual tab is ticked so that we're individually insetting here, and then we'll change the thickness. In this case, I think we'll go with a thickness of, let me see what 0.01 looks like. Yeah, it's a little too thin, so let's go with 0.08, too thick. All right, so 0.05. I don't know what happened there, 0.05. Still a little too thick. Let's see, I'll bring it down a little bit more. All right, so 0.03. That's what we want right there. All right, so thickness is 0.03. Go ahead and tick on X and remove the faces. All right, so now you're left with this hexagonal skeleton. Okay. All right, so now from here we could go ahead and switch to edge mode, hold down Shift and Alt, and select our edge loop all the way around on that side, and then we'll do the same on this side. Okay, so we're selecting those edge loops, and what we're going to do next is I think we'll go ahead and extrude. But I'm going to tap the E key, then right mouse button, and then tap the S key, and extrude, holding down the control to about 1.1. Looks like it should be sufficient. Okay. So I tap the E key to extrude, I tap the right mouse button to keep it at its origin, and then I just tapped S to pull out those extrusions to where I wanted them here at 1.1 vector in all directions. Okay. And all right, so now that we have that, what I want to do here is harden up all these interior edges. All right, so I'm going to deselect. I'm going to go ahead and select one of those interior hexagons, and then I'm going to Shift G and select by amount of faces, and that got everything except these internal parts. All right, so I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt to deselect these exterior border edges because I only want these hexagonal shapes selected. All right, so then I'm going to bring up my edges menu, and I'm going to create an edge crease. All right, and we'll crease it. Let's see, we can crease it pretty good here. I'll give it a crease value factor of 0.8 over here on the left. Okay. All right, so I'll accept that. And now that we have, you can see it changed the color of the borders around it, so we know it's creased properly. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is switch to face mode, select all, and Control F to bring up our faces panel, and we're going to solidify. And now it should have retained the solidify thickness from before, which is what we want, so 0.06. All right, and that looks about right. So then we could deselect everything, and we're going to attach these two parts now. All right, so we're going to tab out to object mode, and we're going to hold down Shift while we select the other object. All right, so now both objects are selected, and Control J to join. And now they're all one object. Okay, although they're still separate sub-objects or sub-elements. They're all in one object, so we can tab back in and edit on both parts now. Okay. So the next thing to do is, and almost there, the last thing we're going to do is connect all this together. All right, and how we're going to do that is to bridge them, but I'll tell you guys, I went through some major trouble with the bridge tool in Blender on this object for some reason. So it doesn't. It's not the same as the 3ds Max bridging tool in the sense that it doesn't want to bridge from face loop to face loop properly. I tried the loop tools bridge as well as the internal bridge, and the only way I can get it to work is by doing the following, and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to delete, we're going to switch to face mode, and we're going to grab this face loop right here. Okay, and we're going to X and delete those faces. Okay, and this leaves us now with a hole there and one giant border edge. All right, and that's what that's what we want to connect these two parts together. So while you're in face mode, go ahead and hold Shift and Control and select this edge loop on that object here. Okay, and we're going to do the same there. Delete those faces. So now we only have the border edge of that. Okay. So now we could switch to edges. And to start this off, and how I found a little trick that helped this bridge work perfectly, was to go ahead and select one of the internal edges, and I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, and so I selected one of the edges inside the object there. Maybe wireframe might help out here. That doesn't seem to help, but hopefully you're seeing that. Now I deleted the faces here and selected the edge on one of the polygons that made up the border to that selection. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate and grab an edge on this object that corresponds with it, and I'm going to tap F to create a face. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing up here on this part of the border, and holding shift, I'll also select that one right across from it, and I'll tap F to create a face. Now what I can do here is go deselect everything, go ahead and hold shift alt, select that entire loop now all the way around. I'm going to hold shift to deselect these edges right here and right here, okay, and then I'm going to Control E to bring up the edges panel and bridge edge loops. Alright, and connect loop type is open loop, and I have a merge factor of 0.5, and that closed it up real nicely. Alright, without any twisting or any kind of weirdness there. Alright, so that's how I found a trick to get the bridge operation to work for me here. And now we just got to do the same to this side. So go ahead into face mode and select that face loop, and then select that internal face loop on that object. So they're facing one another there. Alright, and go ahead and remove those faces. Alright, so now we got to just select one edge. Let's go to edge mode. And we'll select one edge on the inside of the border that we just removed the faces, and then holding down shift, select the other one right across from it, and F to create a face there between the two. Alright, now we'll do the same on these two, and then F. Alright, now what I can do is go ahead and shift alt, click that whole border edge, hold down shift to remove these two edges. Oops. That one, and then go ahead and Control E and bridge edge loops. Okay, and that bridged them very nicely without any twisting or anything like that. Okay. Alright, so now that we have that, we can go ahead and clean up some of this topology. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to count right from this first edge loop to the next one. Alright, and I'm going to hold shift and alt, and I'm going to select that entire edge loop, and then I'm going to Control E and select edge slide, and I'm just going to slide that edge down nice and tight with the other one. Okay, and then from there I'm going to select the edge loop above that one, the entire edge loop all the way around, and go ahead and dissolve it. This time, however, I'm going to enable dissolve vertices. We don't want to leave behind any vertices here. Okay, so I dissolve that whole edge loop with the vertices. Now over here, we're going to come in close. This is my first edge, so I'm going to select the second edge loop. And then I'm going to go ahead and edge slide that in nice and close. That'll create a nice crease there. A nice sharper edge when we go to subdivide. Alright, and then I'm going to just get rid of this second edge loop. We don't need it anymore. So go ahead and dissolve that whole thing. Alright. Alright, and looks like, oh, wait a minute now, I don't know how that happened, but it looks like we have another one here. And I'm going to do the same with it. Go ahead and dissolve it. Now optionally, you can go inside the object and start removing some topology in here to reduce poly count, you know, some unnecessary edge loops or whatnot, but we don't need to do it in this case, I don't think. Alright, so this is the object so far. This object should be just about ready for subdivision, so I'm going to go ahead and apply a subdivision surface modifier to it and increase the iterations to about 3, and that should give you a nice smooth result. Let me get out to object mode here, and this is a 3D printable. You can export this to STL, and you can bring it in NetFab, create wall thickness if you need to. However, this could be 3D printed. It is manifold. Alright, so if I were to 3D print this, I would certainly maybe give it one more iteration. Alright, just for smoothing everything out, because at 3 iterations you can still see some, although it shouldn't matter too much, you can still see some edging in there. Alright, but we could also just turn on smooth shading. If we're just using that as a render object, you could just go with 2 or 3 iterations. Here it is at 2, and it's still nice and smooth. I believe for the render I did just use 2 iterations. Okay. Now you'll notice that in the max version I did create a hole here to slip a pendant through. We could do that as well in Blender. Alright, so you don't have to remove the subsurface, but I'll do it in this case. And let's go down into edit mode, and we'll, just for modeling purposes, we'll let me see if we go out here. Yeah, I think just for modeling purposes, I'm just going to use the flat shaded view. I'm not crazy about the smooth shaded here. Okay. All right, but anyway, we'll create the hole in here. Now, if you see the wireframe here, you'll notice that there is an internal. There's some internal edges or faces in here, and we don't want to intersect those. So you'll notice that there is an edge right here that is above that internal geometry. So we can use that as a guide. So if we're going to create a hole up here, we know we can't go past this edge right here. That'll be our visual guide. Okay. So here's that edge. We can't go past that, or we'll be intersecting internal geometry, which would make for a little bit of a mess. All right. So I'm tapping on 5 to go into orthographic and 1 to go to a front view, and I'm going to go into wireframe view, and I'm going to